All of you are getting?
Yes, sir.
So I have switched myself to computer. Okay. So now let us, as we have discussed, I am going to write the code in Python because this boy who is studying in Prakasam Engineering College, Kandapur, Pranay, he has somewhat doubts over. He has some doubts. Doubts are what? Loops. What is that? Loops in Python. Okay. Loops in. So loops in Python. This is the today's topic. So under the loops, for loop, comma, while loop. So we'll try to understand first of all for loop. Okay. For I in range, not range, string. Okay. Suppose fruit is a string. Okay. Column. Okay, now before this, I need to define this fruit. Why it is giving error? Fruit it is being underlined. Why?
Fruit variable తీసుకోలే సార్ మనం ఇంకా
Means we have not defined the fruit. Okay. So it is not able to understand actually what is fruit. That's why it is mentioning here. If you run this code, you will. So name error. What is the error here? Name error.
Name error.
So here fruit is not defined. Fruit is what? Name. So name error. It means that fruit is not defined. Okay. So who is explaining us? Who is guiding us here? Who is guiding us? My dear Pranay, you have completed your total course of Python and you are studying in Prakash Engineering College and you have chosen the artificial intelligence under that course. Okay, a Python totally completed. So I expect that you will give the answers. Whether you are stating right or wrong doesn't mean, but please give the answer. Don't keep quiet.
Okay.
Whether it is the right or wrong doesn't mean. So you give the answer. So name error, whenever I have run the program, so this error, name fruit is not defined. So who is guiding us? Who is helping me?
Compiler. Compiler.
Compiler is what?
Compile the code.
Compiler,
code.
what it does, compiler?
Compile, run the code, sir.
చెక్ కోడ్
Before running of the code, it checks the code for errors. Okay. So compiler checks all the lines at a time for errors. Compiler checks all the lines for errors at a time. It is single glance. It is called single. But Python is not compiler based program. Python is not
Compiler.
Python is interpreter based program. Interpreter based program. So here interpreter, who will guide me these errors? The interpreter. Compiler, interpreter, the assembler also, assembler. These are all translator programs. What? translator, compiler, comma, interpreter, comma, assembler. All are what? All are what?
Translated program.
Translator programs. Built-in
Python.
programming language. Built-in programming language. Built-in programming language means whenever you are installing any programming language, IDE, that is called Integrated Development Environment. Whenever you are installing any IDE of programming language, it may be Python, Java, C, C++, Kotlin, Swift, R language. That moment, these translator programs are built in. Means you are installing, you need not to install separately. Once the IDE of any programming language, this is the IDE for Python. What the IDE I am using here? This is called, this symbol PC means PyCharm. This is called what? PyCharm for desktop computers and laptops. Okay, here our IDE for Python is what? PyCharm. Okay, this IDE for Python is PyCharm, Integrated Development Environment. Many are there. VS Code is there. Okay, so many. So this IDE for Python, PyCharm, is used to write the code, edit the code, and run the code. Write the code. I have written the code. I have written before in previous class. This is for one algorithm class I have conducted. One algorithm class I have conducted in the Friday class. Write an algorithm to create data and print data of a patient of hospital. So for this question algorithm, this is the algorithm first. I have written sequence of steps one by one. Then these instruction steps, they need to be converted into a program. This is the code for that algorithm. I have written the code, and then, okay, that is, so today's class as per Python in the loops. Okay, I is an indexing variable. So whenever this code written, it is indicating that, so whenever I have entered this, so this error given by the interpreter, not compiler, because C, C++, Java, they are compiler based programs. But here Python is interpreter based program. Interpreter, compiler, assembler, these are translator programs. They are built in of any, they're built in of any programming language. So interpreter, what it does, interpreter first checks the code for any errors. It checks the code for any errors. Okay, what is the role of interpreter here? Interpreter checks the code, every line of code. It checks the every line of code, one by one. Interpreter checks the every line of code, every statement, every line of code is called a statement, otherwise an instruction. Every line, these numbers have been given. 54 is line, one line. See here, from here For this algorithm in previous day, Friday class, write algorithm to create data and print data of a patient of hospital. The code is from here, 43. Now 43 is a statement, otherwise an instruction, a line of code. But 39, 40, 41, 42, they are not called statements or instructions, just because they are commented. Commented means these line of code will not be executed by, even though read these line of code will not be read by the interpreter here. Understood that? So interpreter will not read this line of code. Okay, it executes, interpreter checks the every line of code. Every line of code means every statement, one by one. Okay. And then if no error, if error exists, what? If error exists. So then if error exists, then what happened? It indicates to
User.
correct the code. Okay. If error exists, it indicates to correct the code. If no error, error is called bugs. Okay, error is called what? Bug. If error means bug is there, so it indicates to the programmer, means me. If I am writing the coding, it indicates me to correct the code. If no error, then executes or bracket in bracket runs. Run, executes, both are same. If no error, then executes, runs the code. This is the, okay, understood that? So what happened? Try to understand here. My student is very important because you are, all of the students are studying, but I found that many students are not able to explain the theoretical topics. That is the major drawback I have seen most of the students. Even though whether they are studying in different institutions, whether it may be the SRM and doesn't mean somewhere else, but they are not able to explain the theoretical concepts. And don't expect that if they don't have much theoretical knowledge, and don't expect from them they will write the code properly. Understood that, my dear student? Pranay?
Yes, sir.
Actually, problem is what, the students, they don't have much idea over the theory. If you don't have much theory knowledge and don't expect them, he is a good coder. Don't expect that he will become a good coder. Okay. You must have the knowledge of every pinpoint, what is happening in the programming language. Okay. What is compiler? What is the interpreter? Okay, what is in Java? What is bytecode? Okay, what is the JVM, Java Virtual Machine? Okay, every pinpoint, you must have the knowledge. Okay, now, because Mr. Pranay, you have completed your Python in your semester under your artificial intelligence, but you don't know actually whether the Python is the interpreter based program compiler. That is the basic level question. Suppose if I am the technical recruiter, if I generate the basic question, that moment if you are not able to give the answer, so simply you will be vomited from my interview. Understood that?
Okay.
Understood that. So interpreter, Python is interpreter based program, means interpreter, what it does, it converts the,
Check the code line by line.
interpreter converts source code into object code.
Target code.
Okay. What do you mean of this statement? What do you mean of this statement? Interpreter converts the source code into object code. What do you mean of this statement? Who will explain? If anybody who is attending my classes, if really they want to become a good programmer, first of all, they should have theoretical knowledge very well. And I hope that they will keep their attention focus over the studies. Okay, they need to study very well, and every moment that is to be used properly. Okay, so interpreter converts the source code. Source code is, this is our source code. This is our, whatever the code we write, whatever the code up to from here, this is the source code. Up to where I have written, up to here. Okay, this is the total is called a source code. The code written by the programmer, by the syntax. Every language has different syntax. Every language. Okay, C has its syntax. C++ has its. Every language has separate syntax. Okay, so source code means the line of statements, line of instructions written by the programmer by using of the syntax. Okay, and that source code will be converted into object code. Why? Because object code, why? What happened?
To get output, sir.
Okay, source code, it is the source code written by you because you know the source code, but the computer can't understand this source code. Computer, so in computer, so many sections are there. In computer, so many sections are there. What are the sections of computer? Main sections of the computer? What are the main sections of computer?
Keyboard.
Keyboard is the input device. Mouse is the input device. Printer, screen, they are output devices. Okay, printer and screen, monitor. So what is the major section of the computer which will read this code?
CPU.
Central processing unit. Central processing unit, CPU. Okay. In central processing unit, there is a section that is called microprocessor. Okay. There is a section microprocessor that will read this code, but microprocessor can understand only the object code, not the source code. Understood that? The microprocessor can be able to read only this object code that is called machine language. Object code, it is also, it has one more name. This object code has another name. This object code has another name that is called machine language. What? Machine language. Or okay, machine language. Object code or machine language. Object code or machine language. Or binary language. What? Or bits. Or 0, 1. Okay, so this source code means this code, you know this code, you have studied the books and as per the designer or the programmer who has designed that program, either maybe C language, Dennis Ritchie, and Python designed by Goslang, na? Ronald Goslang, like that. Okay, somebody else. So this language, source code, converted into your binary language, machine language, or 0, bits. They are called bits. So microprocessor can understand only this 0, 1. Okay. So under interpretation, otherwise compilation, two processes are there under interpretation. So here interpretation, under interpretation, source code will be, that is called checking for errors. Under interpretation, checking for errors. Okay, that is the first task. Interpreter, a compiler task. Here interpreter, under interpretation, checking for errors is the primary task. Okay. Primary task. Next, what is the next task? Checking for errors line by line. If there is no any error,